I bought the CB because an old guy at work swore by it. Cell towers go down, truckers still talk, he'd said, tapping his temple. Out where everything's a mile farther than it looks, you'll be glad you have an ear. It sounded like prepper nonsense until my company sent me to survey rural wind sites in late winter. Snow changes a landscape. With enough white on the ground, a familiar road is just a rumor under a smooth sheet. So I installed the CB, clipped the little mic to my dashboard, and convinced myself I was being practical. On the third night of the trip, I left a motel after dark because I'd lost daylight to a busted latch at a turbine yard. The plan was a 2-hour hop over a mountain pass to a bigger town with a decent diner and a room that didn't smell like melted plastic. It had snowed all day and stopped at sunset, leaving the world silenced under a fresh inch. My tires hummed. My breath made small clouds when the heater drifted and caught up. The CB chattered occasionally, truckers swapping mile markers, warnings about black ice. It made me feel less alone, the way a house cat makes a large old building feel inhabited. Halfway up the pass, the highway narrowed to 2 lanes and the snowpack polished to glass. I slowed to a crawl. The sky had that white lid glow that comes from light reflecting off everything, creating the illusion of safety. Then the CB crackled with a voice so abrupt I jumped. "Southbound four-wheeler, you copy?" "Southbound four-wheeler with a ski rack and one headlight a little dim?" I glanced at my right headlight. It did look a shade yellow compared to the left. I pressed the mic. "Copy? Southbound 4, that you? Mile marker 88? The voice was male, strained but casual, like he was the kind of guy who called everybody buddy. I scanned the roadside. 88 flashed by, mostly buried. "That's me," I said. "What's up?" "Appreciate you answering." A pause long enough I almost let go of the mic. "You got a hitcher sitting on your bumper." I looked in the rear view. Empty road. My taillights painted red on the new snow. "Negative. Nobody behind me." "Not in a car," the voice said. "On your bumper." I laughed out of reflex, an ugly sound in my throat. "Okay, funny." "Not joking," he said, still calm. "Seen it before on this climb. Some folks pick up what they shouldn't. Don't brake hard. Don't stop at the summit turnout. If you feel a tap, do not. Repeat, do not. Get out to check." The radio hissed. My palms went slick on the wheel. That kind of winter paranoia spreads. You start imagining shapes in the lack of shape. I pressed the mic again, giving into it. "You can see me?" "Not anymore," he answered. "Pulled over below the slide fence. Just got a bad tone on the line, bud. You hearing anything in your cabin? Tapping? Breathing?" "Just my own," I said, trying to make light of it. My own sounded a little loud. "Good, keep it that way." He was still on channel 19. Other voices bled through, crosstalk, quick bursts from miles away. "You crest. You do a slow roll. There's a plow berm across the windbreak lane. Don't get stuck." I wanted to ask him a dozen questions. Who are you? What's your unit? How do you know this? And why are you telling me in that voice like you're remembering something you wish you could forget? Instead, I said, "Copy." I reached the first curve carved through a cut bank, and the wind picked up snow and flung it in sheets across my hood. The road disappeared in a white swirl and reappeared. I drove the center line like it was a thread over a canyon. That was when I heard it. A tap on the trunk, delicate, like a small gloved hand rapping twice to get my attention. I told myself it was ice flinging off the wheel well. I told myself many things that bounced off the inside of my skull without sticking. I did not touch the brake. The tapping came again, this time followed by a long drag across the paint, a sound that translated directly into an image. Fingertips, slow and lazy, enjoying the texture. My stomach tried to lift into my chest cavity. I squeezed the wheel so hard my gloves squeaked. The CB popped. "Southbound, you still with me?" I swallowed. "Still with you." "You're gonna get 3 knocks at the summit," he said, voice smaller now, as if he'd turned his head and forgotten he was transmitting. "That's what it does when it knows you're about to choose." "What choice?" The word came out too fast. No answer. Just a sigh that turned into static. The summit appeared out of nowhere. The road flattened, the trees thinned, and a sheet of wind shaved across the cut like a blade. The turnout was on the right, a dark rectangle plowed down to ice with a trash barrel sinking into it at a tilt. Beyond it, a break in the guardrail showed where the windbreak lane would be in nicer months. Tonight it was a drift that looked as soft as a couch, and would swallow half a car. I rolled through at 15 miles an hour. The first knock came like a knuckle on glass, not trunk metal. I flinched so hard my knee bumped the steering column. The second followed, precise, almost polite. The third was not polite. It hit with a meaty thud that made the rear end wobble. I white-knuckled the descent. The voice did not return. Other truckers chatted about a jackknifed rig 30 miles away, about coffee, about wives. The wind fell back. The snow softened squeaked under the tires. Somewhere below the tree line, my right headlight brightened until it matched the left, as if I had imagined the difference. I made the next town. The diner's parking lot flashed chips of mica in the pile lamps. I took a booth where I could see my car. The waitress poured coffee that tasted like pennies and mercy. I stared at the rear of my car through the window, at the dust of road salt, the faint fog of heat from the tailpipe. No dents, no scratches I could see. "Rough night?" the waitress asked. "Just the pass," I said. She nodded. "People get funny up there. You see the white lady?" "The what?" She shrugged, unfazed by her own folklore. "Old story. Hitchhiker that doesn't need your door. I don't know. I don't go up there after dark." She set down a plate like a verdict and went to the next table. I went back out after eating because watching my car was worse than facing it. Cold bit through the denim at my knees. Up close, the trunk looked fine. Clean, even, in a way that didn't match the rest of the car, as if someone had wiped it down with a soft cloth. On the lower lip of the lid, where the metal curls under, there were 3 ovals of moisture the size and shape of fingertips, spaced like a hand rested there, patient as a teacher. They evaporated as I stared, fading not from edge to center like water, but from center to edge, leaving the impression that nothing had been there at all. On the way out of town, I tried Channel 19. Breaker 19, southbound four-wheeler, looking for the driver who warned me on the pass. A handful of voices answered, "Where you at? What mile? Say again," but none with that tone, that calm, that had carried a hint of apology. I asked around the turbine yard the next week, half as a joke, half as needlework for my nerves. An old hand with a face like a dried apple said, "You got the Good Samaritan? He's been dead 20 years. People laughed. He didn't. Rolled his rig at the summit in a whiteout, kept talking a while after. Radio stuck open. He told folks not to stop. Some listened. I didn't stop, I said, to him or to myself I couldn't tell. He nodded like that was the right liturgy. Keep it that way. I leave the CB on now, even when the highway is calm and the sky behaves. Most nights it's chatter, sometimes it's silence. But every so often, when the weather turns a road into a memory of itself, a voice comes on that makes me sit up and listen with both ears. If I hear him again, I'll say thank you. If I never do, I'll keep driving easy over the summit and never, ever pull into that turnout after dark. There are knocks you don't answer, choices you never let the night offer you. I was halfway through a 12-hour drive from El Paso to Tulsa, trying to make it in one shot to save on a motel. It was the kind of plan that sounds smart at noon and stupid at midnight. By the time I crossed into the Panhandle, the night felt heavy enough to lean on the car. The highway flattened into an arrow of faded paint and broken cat's eyes. My phone had one bar, then none, then one again like it was playing a private joke. I remember the exact place things changed. A green sign that said mile 239, and a reflector post that looked bent, as if a truck had brushed it. The wind had been steady, scratchy with grit. I had the vents on recirculate because the air outside carried that mineral dust smell that dries your mouth. The dashboard clock said 1:17 a.m. I was alone on the road, not just few cars alone. Alone. No taillights, no oncoming cones of high beams, nothing but the rhythm of my tires over those little tar repair lines. The first off note was a set of tire tracks peeling off the shoulder and into the scrub, as if someone had exited the world at 40 miles per hour. I wouldn't have noticed if my eyes weren't searching for anything to shove caffeine into my brain. I followed the tracks with my gaze until they vanished into low mesquite. No crashed car, no fence cut, just tracks that ended where the dark got thicker. I told myself I was getting jumpy. I turned the radio up, found a station whispering ranchera music through the static, and pressed on. The sign for rest area 2 miles showed up like a miracle. I don't like sleeping at rest stops, but the fatigue felt like a weight around my neck. I planned a quick bathroom break and a stretch, in and out. Except the rest area wasn't where the sign promised. 2 miles passed. 3. Then I saw it. A turnout with a low cinder block building, a candy machine that had eaten 1,000 quarters in its prime, and 2 picnic tables bolted to the concrete. The lights glowed the sick color of old fluorescence. No other cars, not even a trucker catching a nap. The building had those unisex stall doors with half-moons punched into the steel to keep you from locking yourself in. I parked under the brightest lamp and killed the engine. The sudden silence after hours of vibration felt like stepping off a boat. My ears rang with highway ghosts. I got out, stretched, listened. Wind, the soft tick of cooling metal, the distant chitter of something small and nocturnal. When I looked back at the highway, I noticed something that made my scalp pull tight. No movement, no sound, and no horizon glow. It was like the world ended right past the guardrail. "Quick," I muttered. "Bathroom, water, go." Inside smelled like bleach, barely masking something rot sweet. I picked the first stall, hooked the door with my shoe because the latch hung crooked, and did what I came to do. That's when the vending machine thumped. Not a random compressor cough. A thump, like someone had put a hand flat against it and shoved. I held my breath. The thump didn't repeat. I told myself it was the wind shoving an unsecured panel and laughed softly at how wired I was. Back at the sink, I let the water run to hide the noise of my unease. In the mirror's clouded metal, the stall doors were a row of shadows. A flicker came and went behind me. My brain translated it as hair moving through a crack, even as the rational part screamed light glitch. I turned. Empty stalls. I turned back to the mirror. For a split second, I saw a figure crossing the doorway behind me, head tilted, as if trying to read the back of my neck. I spun so fast, I slammed my hip into the sink. The doorway held nothing but night and a whisper of cool air. I left. I didn't run, but my legs felt spring-loaded. Outside, the lot looked subtly rearranged. My car was still under the light, but the shadows of the picnic tables stretched in the wrong direction, like the moon had changed places and nobody told me. I told myself to get a grip. I opened my door, got in, locked the doors, that satisfying childish click, and started the engine. The dash didn't light. I turned the key again. The starter chattered, then went dead. The clock froze at 1:29 a.m. The hair on my arms stood up like static. I turned the key a third time, whispering a half-remembered prayer. Nothing. I sat with my hands on the wheel, breathing carefully. I had jumper cables. I had no other car. I had a phone with 0 signal. What I didn't have was the courage to pop the hood under that weird lamp and expose my back to the open lot. I told myself to think, wait in the locked car until morning. People always show up eventually. I turned the radio knob out of habit. It came alive instantly, not music, but a voice, dry like a throat full of sand. Don't wait for morning. The volume was low, a murmur. I froze, my fingers pinching the knob, hard enough to hurt. The display read aux, even though nothing was plugged in. "Hello?" I said before I could stop myself. My voice sounded wrong in the cabin, too round, too present. Silence. Then the voice again, the words dragging. They come back. My skin did the cold fire thing. I scanned the lot, the highway, the scrub. The lamp hummed. The wind rustled the mesquite. Nothing else moved. "Who's there?" I asked, hating the cliche of it, hating the way my breath fogged the windshield in a trembling smear. I tried the headlights. Dead. I tried the horn. Dead. Another sound crept up on me, so soft I first took it for a new note in the lamp's hum. Tires on gravel. Not my tires. Something heavy. Slow. A vehicle easing into the lot without headlights, careful as a hand sliding under a door. I squinted into the thick. Shapes emerged where I was certain there had been only dark. The outline of a car. Then another. Older sedans, their surfaces matte and starved of reflection, like they'd been dusted with ash. They rolled in without engine noise, arranged themselves in a loose half-circle facing my spot, and stopped. I could see nothing of their interiors. Tinted or just empty. The radio crackled, the voice thinner now, almost threadbare. "Don't get out." A pause. "They like it when you do." I realized I had been unconsciously reaching for the door handle, as if politeness demanded I step out to greet the arriving audience. I yanked my hand back and shoved it under my thigh. The cars sat patient and still. The lamp over me flickered. With each dim I saw more. something like handprints on the inside of the other car's windshields, smeared arcs where palms had slid down the glass. The building's door sat slightly ajar now, though I knew damn well it had swung shut behind me. That rot-sweet odor the bleach couldn't conquer thickened as if the wind had turned and carried it straight into my vents. I whispered, "What do I do?" to the radio. Static answered. Then, as if from a long way off, "Mile marker, count back." I stared at the display, still aux, and had the unhelpful thought that if I lived, I would rip the stereo out and feed it to a landfill. Count back. From what? The sign. 239. I squeezed my eyes shut like I could force a solution out of the dark behind them. Did the road run weird here? Had I missed a junction? Was this some kind of maintenance lot for highway patrol I'd just invaded with my panic? The lamp dimmed again, long enough that I saw a face appear in the passenger window beside me. Not pressed up against the glass, not jump scare close, but drawn in the reflection, as if the lamp had found a person-shaped absence to color in. The features were wrong the way a water-damaged photograph is wrong. The head tilted, same angle as the almost figure in the bathroom mirror, a posture of patient curiosity. That broke something in me. I twisted the key as hard as I could. The engine caught like it had been waiting for me to commit. All the lights came back at once. Dash, dome, radio display flipping to nonsense characters. The headlights flared so bright the lamp above looked sick beside them. For a heartbeat, the half circle of cars showed their true faces. No plates, no stickers, no glass in some of the windows, interiors ribbed with torn fabric. Then they were just dark lumps again. I threw the car into reverse, tires spitting gravel, and didn't bother with grace. I hung a wide arc, nose toward the exit, and floored it. As I shot past the building, the door swung fully open. Something inside knocked. That same thump from the vending machine, repeated fast, like a fist beating a drum. I didn't look. I aimed at the black ribbon of highway and prayed it existed. It did. The moment my tires hit asphalt, the horizon returned, a faint glow like a town I'd forgotten about. The mirror showed me the rest area receding. For an instant, all the lamps cut off together, like someone had pulled a main switch. In the sudden void, the cars in the lot seemed to turn their noses toward the highway in unison, like animals deciding whether to give chase. They didn't. Or if they did, I never saw them. I drove until sun brought color back to the world. Birds returned, trucks reappeared. My phone found towers and made up for lost time with a flurry of notifications. At a busy gas station, I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the pump until a guy in a ball cap tapped my window and asked if I was done. I wasn't, but I moved anyway. I looked up mile 239 later. The map said there is a rest area near there, decommissioned after a series of incidents. A forum thread argued whether incidents meant robberies, drugs, or something no one wanted to put in writing. Someone posted a grainy picture, a low building, 2 picnic tables, a lot that looked too big for its use. In the corner of the frame, an old sedan without plates faced the camera like it wanted to be counted. I don't stop at rest areas anymore. When the road is empty and the clock says stupid things, I keep moving, even if I have to talk to myself or slap my cheeks or chew mints until my tongue hurts. If I do have to pull over, I leave the engine running. I don't look at the mirror for too long. And if a voice ever comes through a dead radio again, I will listen. Because that night taught me there are places on the map where the asphalt forgets you, and the only thing that remembers is whatever waits by the picnic tables facing the highway, patient as gravity. I was driving my cousin's Corolla because mine was at a shop where the mechanic said, tomorrow, with the confidence of a fortune teller. I had promised my mom I'd make it to my aunt's birthday 2 states over. Borrow the car, my cousin said. She's a grandma. She'll purr the whole way. The Corolla did purr, a small smug vibration through the steering wheel that said it had nothing to prove. Night took the interstate like a slow spill of ink. The GPS threw its polite blue ribbon across the dashboard, correcting me when I drifted to thoughts instead of lanes. The car smelled faintly of my cousin's vanilla air freshener and something else I couldn't place at first. Old paper? Library? It took 20 miles for me to realize it was perfume, the powdery kind grandmothers love. I smiled. The car wasn't haunted, it was seasoned. About 90 minutes in, the GPS chirped. Faster route found. Save 14 minutes. It wanted me to cut onto a state road that paralleled the interstate and ducked around a construction zone. I've been burned by faster routes before, but 14 minutes felt like mercy. I took the exit, rolled down a ramp that felt too dark too fast, and found myself on a 2-lane strip through trees. It would have been fine if not for the feeling that this road remembered a different era. Faded motel signs with bulbs like missing teeth. Gas stations with prices so old the numbers looked surprised. Houses set far back, porch lights burning like vows. The speed limit dropped. The GPS voice softened as if not to wake anyone. At the first stoplight in a town the map called Grainer, a figure stepped into the cone of my headlights like they'd been waiting for a cue. A woman, maybe late 60s, wearing a coat buttoned to the throat and a scarf knotted under her chin the old-fashioned way. She didn't put out her thumb. She just walked to my passenger door and stood attentively. I locked the doors out of reflex and guilt. We looked at each other through glass. Her face was lined but neat, the kind of face that had given and received lots of casseroles. She smiled a winter small smile and nodded as if I had said something agreeable. Then she lifted her hand, palm up. The light changed green. I drove on because that's what you do. In my mirror, she stayed in the middle of the crosswalk, hand out, as if expecting me to reconsider. I told myself I hadn't eaten enough. I told myself the perfume smell had primed me for a grandmother. I cracked the window for air, and the cold crept in like a cat. Graner fell behind. The road lost the last of its town manners and sloped into fields. The GPS gave a faint bong and instructed me to continue for 23 miles. The screen dimmed to night mode. The Corolla's purr grew louder in the quiet until it felt like a companionable hum. "Thank you for stopping," a voice said, very close, very normal. I jerked the wheel. The car skidded onto the shoulder, tires hissing on gravel. I corrected and coasted to a halt, my hands locked around the wheel out of superstition that letting go would break something essential. The passenger seat was no longer empty. The woman from the crosswalk sat with her hands folded in her lap, coat buttoned, scarf neat. She smelled like my grandmother's closet used to smell, talc and dry lavender and old wood. I didn't stop, I said, because my mouth and my brain were on different jobs. She considered this, nodded once, and looked out the windshield. "You did enough." I fumbled for the lock button, found it, hit it. The doors were locked. The car had never unlocked. She ignored me and kept watching the road like a quiet judge. Up close, she looked tired, yes, and disciplined about it. A certain exactness around the mouth that says a person has decided what they can endure and how. "What do you want?" I asked. It came out rough. "Are you okay?" She turned and smiled in a new way, a small upgrade of warmth. "You're very polite." "I'm not," I said. "I'm scared." "Good," she said softly. "Fear keeps us between the lines." I hovered over the hazard light button, suddenly convinced that turning it on would be a kind of invitation. People would stop. She would ask to go with them. Or worse, she would be gone when I looked back, and I would never know if I had invented her. "I can take you to a police station," I said, "or a hospital." "Too late for those," she said thoughtfully, not sad. "But thank you for offering." "Too late?" The words tasted metallic. She put her palm on the dashboard as if feeling a vibration. "This is my car," she said, almost amused. "It's my cousin's," I said too fast. "Your cousin bought it secondhand from a man who did not like to talk," she said. "Before him, it was mine." "That's not possible." It came out like a complaint to a manager. She tilted her head like we were choosing a wallpaper pattern. "The impossible is very common on this road. Will you keep driving? It isn't good to be still here." The GPS chimed as though seconding her. "Continue straight for 22 miles. I pulled back onto the asphalt because the engine seemed to want it. The trees closed in again, branches crowding like an audience leaning for a look. We drove in a pocket of light and perfume. I felt like a kid sneaking downstairs to see if the adults were still up. "What happened to you?" I asked finally. "I got lost," she said. "I took a faster route." She started to tell it like a person unspooling the obvious, a birthday she didn't want to miss, a road that predated her, a stop at a gas station that had a bell on the door that rang when you entered. "He never looked up from his newspaper," she said. "He rang up a coffee and a map. I left exact change in a dish he didn't notice until I was gone. I like to be neat," she added, apologetic. What year? I asked. She stared ahead. The year my first grandson was born. Either the detail was for her alone, or the year didn't translate. Did you crash? The word felt crude. No, she said, puzzled by the suggestion. Nothing that dramatic. That's the trouble. I kept not crashing. I kept almost turning around. She placed 2 fingers on the glove compartment, middle knuckles pressing into the fake leather as if to reassure it. It's hard to stop where there's no good reason to stop. And it's hard to keep going when everyone you ask tells you different roads to the same place. Did you know there are 3 main streets within 10 miles of here? I do. How long have you? I gestured at the cabin, stupidly polite about not saying been like this. Long enough to learn that names don't help. She reached into the pocket of her coat. I flinched. She drew out a small, folded thing, a parking stub faded to brown. She placed it in the cup holder. The ink had bled into the paper until the letters looked like they'd tried to walk away and drowned. A date, a time, a lot number I didn't recognize. The perforated edge was neat. She had kept it like a pressed leaf. I used to think, she said, that I was waiting for the right person to take me home. But it turns out I was waiting for my own name. What's your name? I asked. She smiled, almost indulgent. It doesn't matter. Yours will do, for now. The GPS chimed again. Turn left in 800 feet. The arrow showed a road I hadn't seen any sign for, a thin gray vein vanishing into blacker trees. I slowed out of reluctance as much as caution. My headlights found a narrow turn with a broken post where a sign used to be. No houses, no mailboxes, no tire tracks. My stomach dropped to floor. Don't, she said, suddenly firm, all the softness withdrawn like a hand from a stove. Stay on the state road. It says lots of things, she snapped without anger. It adapts. I went straight. The arrow rotated like an eye tracking prey, then snapped to a new plan. In 3 miles, make a U-turn. I didn't. We drove another 10 miles. The perfume faded so slowly I only noticed when the air turned back into the car's clean, cheap fabric smell. When I glanced at the passenger seat, it was empty. No warmth denting the cushion. No door chime from a weight that shouldn't be there. The cup holder was empty too. The parking stub was gone, like a trick your hands do to themselves. At the next town, I pulled into a gas station bright enough to cast shadows. The cashier had a college hoodie on and a look of practiced boredom. We get a lot of people off the interstate, he said when I asked for directions. GPS likes to save you 15 minutes that you spend trying to find where the road exists. Anyone ever show up in your car? I said it with a laugh that sounded like I'd just learned how. He snorted. Only when they already paid for it. He pointed out a better route, one that took me around Grainer entirely. Back on the interstate, all those lanes felt like a crowd. Tractor trailers shouldered past with their wind and diesel breath. Road signs used fonts that cared about legibility. The Corolla's purr settled into the noise floor of normal life. 2 exits before my aunt's town, the CB. I didn't have a CB, but that was the sound. The radio picked up a station that didn't exist on the display. A voice that felt like it had learned English from librarians said my cousin's name. Then it said mine. Then it said a third name I didn't know, and for a second my hands loosened on the wheel, because the name was right in my mouth, like a word I'd been saying for years. I didn't change lanes. I didn't turn the knob. I didn't answer. The voice read a number, a lot number, and a date that made me see a baby hat in a hospital picture. The sound faded. The display kept pretending it was on Bluetooth, even though my phone had been in airplane mode to save battery. At my aunt's house, the porch light made everything kind. The kitchen was loud in the happy way kitchens are. Someone hugged me, and my brain took a picture of the texture of their sweater because it wanted proof. I went back out to the curb once, later, after cake, just to breathe and to touch the Corolla's hood like a talisman. The trunk had a faint sweep on it, 4 shallow arcs side by side, like someone had petted the paint to say goodbye. I reached out and laid my fingers next to the marks. For a second, they lined up exactly. Then my hand looked wrong, too big, too alive, and I put it back in my pocket and went inside, where the names are written on cards and the roads are lit and the voices come from people with faces attached. I returned the Corolla to my cousin the next day. "She treat you good?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She knew the way. "Grandma loved that car," my cousin said casually. and then frowned as if surprised she'd said it. I mean, the guy who owned it before. Whatever. I'm glad she runs. I almost told her about the perfume, about the neatness, about the faster route that wanted to borrow me. Instead, I handed over the keys and said, "Keep the doors locked when you park, okay?" She laughed. Always. There are roads that act like magnets for the version of you that gets lost easily. I don't take state shortcuts at night anymore. If the map promises to save me time, I tell it to save the next guy. And when a voice in a car I don't own knows my name, I let it pass through me like cold air and keep my own. Because some nights, the only thing you really own is the decision to stay between the lines.